He told me I was nothing without him, that I'd never succeed in this industry alone. He didn't know I was the anonymous investor backing his biggest project until I canceled his $2 million contract, leaving him scrambling to save his failing business. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The irony was delicious as Marcus strutted around his luxurious office, bragging to his business partners about their latest successful pitch. See what proper connections can do? He smirked, shooting me a condescending glance. Some people just don't understand this industry requires more than just ideas. His associates chuckled, all wearing custom Italian suits paid for with money I had secretly invested. They had no idea that the angel investor they'd been desperately trying to meet for months was sitting right there, dressed in my intentionally modest blazer, being talked down to yet again. Tomorrow, that same investor would pull the plug on their entire operation, starting with the $2 million contract that Marcus couldn't stop bragging about. The premium whiskey in his hand, my whiskey, like everything else in this office, caught the afternoon light as he continued his subtle jabs. Every word was being carefully documented, adding to the mountain of evidence that would justify the termination clause I'd built into our agreement. Speaking of connections, Marcus continued, swirling his aged bourbon. Our mystery investor just approved another milestone payment. $2 million, gentlemen. He paused for effect, savoring their impressed murmurs. That's what having the right reputation in this industry can do. I suppressed a smile, remembering how desperately he'd pitched his startup to every venture capital firm in the city before my shell company offered him funding. Now he acted like it had all been inevitable, a natural result of his supposed business acumen. Sarah here, he gestured toward me dismissively, wanted to launch her own startup last year. Remember that disaster? More knowing chuckles from his inner circle. Thank God I convinced her to join us as a consultant instead. Some people just aren't cut out for the big leagues. I took a small sip of water, maintaining my practiced mask of quiet acquiescence. The same mask I'd worn 6 months ago when I first approached Marcus's struggling tech company through layers of carefully constructed corporate entities. He'd been 3 weeks away from bankruptcy then, though his current audience would never know it. The Series A funding alone proves we're on the right track, Marcus boasted, name-dropping the venture capital firms that had followed my initial investment. What he didn't know was that each one was connected to my broader investment network, carefully orchestrated to build his confidence while maintaining my anonymity. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, downtown's gleaming towers reflected the late afternoon sun. Somewhere in those buildings, my real empire operated smoothly without me, a technology conglomerate I'd built from scratch over the past decade. Marcus's little startup was just a small piece in my larger strategy, though his ego would never let him see it. Another round? Marcus offered, reaching for the bottle of Macallan 25 I'd had delivered to the office last week. We should celebrate securing that government contract. Sarah, be a dear and grab some fresh glasses from the kitchen. I stood quietly, playing my role perfectly. Inside, I was reviewing the termination proceedings set for tomorrow morning. The documentation of his mismanagement was extensive. The unofficial meetings with competitors, the misappropriated development funds, the steady stream of talented employees driven away by his toxic leadership style. Don't forget the ice this time, he called after me, triggering another round of sycophantic laughter. Detail-oriented thinking. That's what separates the leaders from the support staff. In the kitchen, I checked my secure phone. A message from Rita, my chief operating officer and one of the few who knew my true identity, flashed on the screen. Final documentation complete. Board briefed. Tomorrow's meeting confirmed. I smiled, thinking of the carefully orchestrated revelation to come. The board had always known me as Alexandra Chen, the reclusive tech investor who'd saved their company from bankruptcy. Tomorrow they would finally meet their principal investor in person, not as the mysterious benefactor behind their success, but as Marcus's support staff. As I arranged the crystal tumblers on a silver tray, another message came through. Legal team standing by, all contracts reviewed, termination clauses ironclad. The sound of Marcus's booming laughter echoed down the hallway. Once, his constant belittling would have angered me. Now it just added another entry to the documentation. Hostile work environment, persistent pattern of discriminatory behavior. Gathered the tray, remembering my mentor's words from years ago. Success isn't about who talks the loudest. It's about who has the patience to wait, watch, and strike at exactly the right moment. The perfect moment had finally arrived. In less than 24 hours, I would walk into their board meeting not as Sarah the consultant, but as Alexandra Chen, majority investor and the architect of their impending downfall. The thought brought a small smile to my face as I headed back to the office. Ice clinking softly against crystal, counting down the minutes until tomorrow's sweet revelation. The private. Elevator hummed softly as I rode down to my waiting car, leaving Marcus and his associates to their celebratory drinks. My driver, Thomas, who was actually my head of security, gave me a knowing look in the rearview mirror as I settled into the back seat. "Quite a performance today, Ms. Chen," he said quietly, pulling away from the curb. Like Rita, Thomas was one of the few who knew my dual identity. He'd been with me since I founded my first successful tech company 8 years ago, before I learned the value of anonymity. "Marcus was in rare form tonight," I replied, finally allowing myself to relax into my true persona. Apparently, I should be grateful he saved me from my disastrous startup ambitions. The irony of his statement wasn't lost on either of us. That disastrous startup was now a billion-dollar AI company, one of many in my portfolio. As we drove through the city's financial district, I thought back to how this elaborate charade had begun. 6 months ago, Marcus's company, Innovatech Solutions, had caught my attention, not for their success, but for their wasted potential. Their core technology was brilliant, developed by a team of engineers who deserved better than Marcus's. Leadership. "The latest report from HR came in," Thomas mentioned, handing me a tablet. 3 more resignations this week, all from the core development team." I scrolled through the exit interviews, each telling the same story. Toxic management, credit stealing, discriminatory promotion practices. Marcus hadn't always been this way. When I first met him at a tech conference 2 years ago, he'd seemed different, passionate about innovation, eager to make a difference. Success had changed him, or rather, the illusion of success had revealed his true nature. "Remember when he first pitched to your shell company?" Thomas asked, a slight smile playing at his corners of his mouth. "All that talk about revolutionary, leadership and inclusive workplace culture?" I remembered it well. Marcus had stood in front of my representatives, selling a vision of corporate responsibility and collaborative innovation. 2 weeks later, I'd witnessed him berating a junior developer for daring to question his technical decisions. That's when I'd decided to implement my long-term strategy. Through layers of corporate entities and investment firms, I'd orchestrated a rescue package for Innovatech. The terms were generous, too generous, as my financial advisors had warned. But I wasn't interested in immediate returns. I wanted something more valuable, documented evidence of how power corrupts and the opportunity to protect the brilliant. Minds trapped under Marcus's leadership. My phone buzzed with a message from Rita. "Marcus just sent another all-hands email taking credit for the Morrison project's success." I pulled up the email, adding it to our growing documentation. The Morrison project had been saved by the same junior developer Marcus had humiliated, a fact conveniently omitted from his self-congratulatory message. "Your consultation meeting is scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow," Thomas reminded me, turning onto the private road leading to my actual office. Marcus insisted on having his entire leadership team present. "Of course he did," I smiled. He never misses an opportunity to showcase his supposed superiority. The meeting was supposedly to discuss my suggestions for improving team morale, suggestions that Marcus had invited me to present, purely so he could publicly dismiss them. We pulled into my private parking garage, and I felt the familiar transformation beginning. Here, in my real office, I wasn't Sarah, the modest consultant. I was Alexandra Chen, CEO of one of the largest technology investment firms in the country. The building's sophisticated security system acknowledged my presence, and the executive elevator opened silently. "Rita's waiting in your office," Thomas informed me. "She's finalized the termination proceedings." As the elevator rose to the top floor, I watched the city lights twinkle below. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably still holding court with his sycophants, unaware that his reign was about to end. My actual office was everything Marcus's pretended to be, understated but undeniably powerful. Rita stood at my desk, surrounded by holographic displays showing real-time data from all my portfolio companies, including Innovatech. "Marcus just approved another unnecessary executive retreat," she reported, pulling up the financial documents. 4 days at a luxury resort, while the development team's budget request for essential equipment was denied. I settled behind my desk, reviewing the latest reports. The pattern was clear and damning: systematic mismanagement, resource misallocation, and a corporate culture that was driving away top talent. All meticulously documented, all justifying the termination clauses in our investment agreement. "The board members?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "All confirmed for tomorrow's meeting," Rita answered. "They're expecting to meet Alexandra Chen for the first time. Marcus has been trying to get on the call list all week. Tomorrow he'll meet me in person," I said, signing the final authorization documents. "Just not in the way he expects." As night fell over the city, I reviewed the evidence one last time: every email, every meeting recording, every financial decision, all painting a clear picture of a leader who'd lost his way. The technology his team had developed could revolutionize cloud computing, but under his leadership, it would never reach its full potential. "Your legal team just sent this over," Rita said, displaying a new document. "The engineers' stock options have been protected, as requested. Once Marcus is out, they'll retain their equity under the new management structure." I nodded, remembering the passion in those engineers' eyes when they talked about their work. They deserved a leader who would support their vision, not suppress it to feed his own ego. "Everything's in place," Rita confirmed, shutting down the displays. "Tomorrow at 9 a.m., Marcus's world changes completely." I stood at my window, watching the city pulse with energy. Tomorrow would bring chaos and revelation, but tonight I savored the calm before the storm. After all, the best lessons in leadership sometimes require a dramatic demonstration of consequence. "Send me the latest project updates from the development team," I instructed Rita. It's time we started planning for Innovatech's future. Its real future after tomorrow's cleanup. As I reviewed the technical specifications late into the night, I couldn't help but smile at Marcus's words from earlier. Some people just aren't cut out for the big leagues. Tomorrow he'd learn exactly who belonged in which league. The earliest rays of sunlight were just beginning to paint the city skyline as I sat in my real office, reviewing the journey that had led to this moment. Most people thought Alexandra Chen had appeared out of nowhere 5 years ago, a mysterious tech investor with an uncanny ability to spot undervalued companies. The truth was far more interesting. 10 years ago, I was a software engineer with a groundbreaking idea for quantum
encryption.
Every venture capital firm in Silicon Valley had turned me down, not because of my technology, but because I didn't fit their image of a tech founder. "Too quiet," they said. "Not enough presence." One investor even suggested I find a male co-founder to be the face of the company. Instead, I bootstrapped my first company from a tiny apartment, living on ramen noodles and determination. Within 2 years, my encryption technology was being used by major banks worldwide. but I'd learned a valuable lesson about perception and power in the tech industry. Success attracted parasites, and being visible made you vulnerable. Your 7 a.m. briefing, Ms. Chen, Rita announced, entering with her tablet. She'd been with me since those early days, watching as I transformed from a naive engineer into someone who understood how to play the long game. "How's our portfolio this morning?" I asked, though the holographic displays surrounding my desk already showed me the answer. 23 companies, each carefully selected, each containing some element of brilliant innovation being stifled by egotistical leadership. Innovatech's latest financial reports just came in, Rita said, projecting a detailed analysis. Marcus has been creative with the numbers again. He's hidden the development team's budget cuts under strategic resource reallocation. I studied the figures, adding them to our documentation. Show me the parallel analysis of their actual technical progress. A new hologram appeared, displaying metrics that would make any real tech investor weep. Breakthrough innovations shelved because they didn't match Marcus's vision. Talented developers relegated to maintenance work while their ideas were claimed by the executive team. Your initial investment in Innovatech, Rita reminded me, pulling up the historical data. Everyone thought you were crazy to offer such generous terms. A slight smile played at her lips. They didn't understand you weren't buying a company. You were buying evidence. She was right. When I first discovered Innovatech's potential, I could have simply acquired them outright. But a hostile takeover wouldn't have exposed the systemic problems in tech leadership that I'd spent years documenting. Marcus and his type were symptoms of a larger disease in the industry, one that needed to be dragged into the light. Show me the retention data for female engineers under Marcus's leadership, I requested. The holographic display shifted, revealing a damning pattern. Brilliant minds driven away by a culture of dismissal and discrimination, exactly like what I'd faced a decade ago. The parallel tracking system recorded another interesting conversation yesterday, Rita noted, queuing up an audio file. Marcus's voice filled the room. Look, I don't care if her solution is more efficient. We go with David's approach. He understands how things work in the real world. The her in question was Dr. Sarah Chen, my alter ego, who had proposed an optimization that would have saved the company millions in server costs. The same optimization that was already making my other companies fortunes. Your collection of personas is quite impressive, Rita observed, displaying profiles of my various professional identities. Sarah Chen, the quiet consultant. Dr. Chen, the academic who published groundbreaking papers under a deliberately ambiguous first initial. Alexandra Chen, the reclusive investor who only appeared via secure video calls. Each serves its purpose, I replied, remembering how I'd crafted these identities after my early experiences. People reveal their true nature when they think they're dealing with someone powerless. A notification pulsed on my secure screen. Marcus had just arrived at the office, earlier than usual. The surveillance system showed him practicing his presentation for today's meeting, rehearsing how he would shoot down each of my suggestions while maintaining a veneer of professional courtesy. He still hasn't reviewed the actual investment agreement, Rita noted with a touch of amusement. The clause about ethical leadership requirements is quite explicit. I stood, walking to my window wall. From here, I could see Marcus's office building, where he was probably congratulating himself on how cleverly he managed his difficult consultant. Show me the latest valuation of my encryption company, I requested. The figures materialized in the air. Billions in revenue, technological breakthroughs that had revolutionized digital security, and a corporate culture consistently rated among the best in tech. All achieved without a single public appearance by its founder. Your car is ready, Rita reported. Thomas has confirmed the security arrangements for this morning's revelation. She paused, studying my reflection in the window. Are you ready to end this particular experiment? I turned from the view, transforming my posture and expression into Sarah Chen's more subdued demeanor. The change was subtle but profound, a skill honed through years of observing how people wielded and responded to power. The experiment ended the moment Marcus proved he cared more about his ego than innovation, I replied. Today is simply about recording the results. My phone buzzed with a final message from the security team. Every exit interview, every buried report, every instance of Marcus taking credit for others' work, all meticulously compiled and verified. In an hour, the board would meet Alexandra Chen for the first time, not through a secure video call, but face-to-face. "One last thing," Rita said as I gathered my things. "The development team you wanted to protect? Their new stock options are already in escrow. No matter what Marcus tries today, their innovations are safe." I nodded, picking up my deliberately modest laptop bag. In it was every document needed to take back control of my investment and reshape Innovatech's future. Marcus thought he was going to spend today dismissing a consultant's concerns. Instead, he was about to learn why true power rarely advertises itself. "Time to go," I said, heading for the private elevator. "Let's show Marcus exactly what kind of person isn't cut out for the big leagues." I arrived at Innovatech's offices 30 minutes earlier than usual, my modest Hyundai pulling into the visitor's parking space I'd been assigned as a consultant. Through the lobby's glass walls, I could see Marcus in his corner office, gesturing emphatically during what appeared to be a heated phone call. What he didn't know was that every word was being recorded and analyzed by my team. "Latest brief from overnight monitoring," Thomas murmured, disguised as a courier delivering my morning coffee. He'd perfected this routine over the past 6 months, our daily exchanges of information hidden in plain sight. The tiny drive concealed in my coffee cup contained everything I needed for today's endgame. Marcus's voice carried across the open office as I made my way to my temporary workspace, a cramped desk deliberately positioned where he could keep an eye on me. No. You tell them the Chen Investment Group's representative will have to wait. I don't care how important they think they are." If only he knew that his mysterious benefactor was already here, cataloging his every misstep. I powered up my laptop, connecting to our secure monitoring system. Multiple windows appeared, each tracking different aspects of our operation. Financial surveillance, every transaction Marcus had authorized in the past 6 months, color-coded for suspicious activity. The pattern was damning, resources consistently diverted from research and development to executive strategic initiatives. HR analytics, a steady stream of resignation letters from top talent, each citing similar reasons. Hostile work environment, credit theft, discrimination, all meticulously documented and cross-referenced. Communications monitor, Marcus's email exchanges with competitors, his attempts to shop around proprietary technology that wasn't his to sell. The encryption he thought unbreakable was child's play compared to what I'd developed years ago. "Morning, Sarah!" Marcus's voice boomed behind me, making me jump slightly. A calculated reaction he'd come to expect. "Ready to have your brilliant ideas shot down today?" His laugh was meant to sound jovial, but the underlying contempt was clear. "Just finalizing my presentation," I replied softly, playing my role one last time. On my screen, a notification flashed. The board members were arriving early for their meeting with Alexandra Chen. They'd been surprised by my request for an in-person appearance, but none had dared refuse. "Don't waste too much time on it," Marcus advised, his condescension barely concealed. "Some of us have real work to do, like managing our $2 million contract." He emphasized the amount, knowing it would take me months to earn what he managed in a single deal. Little did he know that I could buy his entire company with what I earned in interest alone. Another notification, Rita confirming that all termination papers were in place, every I dotted and T crossed by our legal team. The morning unfolded according to plan. I watched as Marcus paraded around the office, holding court with his executive team, each of them subtly jockeying for position. Their conversations were all captured by the ambient recording system I'd had installed during the office's security upgrade 3 months ago. The investor call went well, Marcus announced to no one in particular, though he made sure I could hear. They're impressed with my vision for the company. Sometimes it's all about who you know, right, Sarah? I nodded meekly while sending a coded message to Rita. Initial position confirmed. Proceed with Phase 1. Within minutes, Marcus's phone buzzed. A message from his assistant about an urgent board meeting request. "What the hell?" he muttered, reading the message. "The board wants to meet now? And Chen's representative is actually here?" His face flushed with anger at not being informed earlier. "Sarah, we'll have to postpone your little presentation. Some actual business came up." "Of course," I replied, watching as he hurried to his office to prepare. Through our monitoring system, I could see him frantically pulling up files, trying to make sense of the sudden meeting. His search history told the story. Alexandra Chen background. Chen Investment Group leadership. Tech investor profiles. Another message from Rita. Board assembled. Legal team in position. Security protocols activated. I began my own preparation, opening a hidden compartment in my laptop bag. Inside was everything I needed for the transformation. The tailored blazer I'd worn when I built my first billion-dollar company, the signature pearl necklace that had become Alexandra Chen's trademark in her rare video appearances, the boards. Waiting in the main conference room, Marcus's assistant announced, looking flustered. "They're asking for all senior executives to join immediately." I watched as Marcus straightened his tie, checked his reflection, and headed toward the conference room. He paused at my desk. "Stay here and work on your presentation. With any luck, I'll be back to hear all about your innovative ideas." His sarcasm was thick enough to cut with a knife. The moment he disappeared into the conference room, I opened a secure channel to Rita. "Status report? All systems go," she confirmed. "Every board member has received the complete documentation package. Security teams are in position. The development team has been quietly advised to stay at their desks for an important announcement." I stood, walking to the bathroom with my laptop bag. Inside a private stall, I began my transformation. The modest sweater was replaced by a designer blazer. My deliberately messy hair was smoothed into a sleek chignon. The glasses I didn't actually need were tucked away. "Marcus is getting anxious," Rita reported through my earpiece. "The board. Chairman just informed him that they're waiting for one more person, Alexandra Chen herself." I checked my appearance one final time. Gone was Sarah, the overlooked consultant. In her place stood Alexandra Chen, tech industry power player and majority investor in Innovatech Solutions. My phone buzzed with a final confirmation. The development team was assembled, the security teams were in place, and every exit was covered. "It's time," I told Rita, heading toward the conference room. "Let's show Marcus exactly who he's been underestimating." Through the glass walls, I could see him checking his phone repeatedly, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. In a few moments, he would learn the true cost of assuming power meant being loud, being male, or being a bully. I paused outside the conference room door, savoring these final seconds before everything changed. 6 months of careful planning, of documented abuse, of strategic patience, all leading to this moment. "Ready when you are, Ms. Chen." Thomas's voice came through my earpiece. I squared my shoulders, lifted my chin, and reached for the door. Handle. It was time to reveal exactly who wasn't cut out for the big leagues. The conference room fell silent as I entered, every head turning to the door. Marcus sat at his usual spot near the head of the table, his expression shifting from annoyance to confusion as he registered my transformed appearance. The board members, already briefed on what was about to unfold, maintained carefully neutral expressions. "I apologize for any delay," I announced, my voice carrying the authority I'd deliberately hidden for months. Gone was Sarah's hesitant tone, replaced by the confident command of Alexandra Chen. "Shall we begin?" Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Sarah? What are you doing here? This is a closed board meeting. We're waiting for Alexandra Chen? I finished for him, placing my portfolio on the table. She's here. The color drained from Marcus's face as realization began to dawn. Behind him, the large display screen came to life, showing a compilation of data that my team had spent months gathering. Financial records, email exchanges, surveillance footage, all documenting his reign of mismanagement and abuse. This is some kind of joke, he attempted to laugh, looking around for support. But the board members remained stoically silent. Sarah's just a consultant. I'm the principal investor in Innovatech Solutions. I cut him off, my voice sharp as a blade. The one you've been desperately trying to meet for the past 6 months. The one whose investment saved this company from bankruptcy, though you've been taking credit for that particular miracle. Marcus's face cycled through emotions: disbelief, anger, fear. That's impossible. Alexandra Chen is standing right in front of you, I finished, nodding to Rita, who had entered silently behind me. She distributed folders to each board member, containing the final documentation they would need. If you'll direct your attention to the screen, I continued, as Marcus sank slowly back into his chair, you'll see a comprehensive record of your leadership over the past 6 months. Section 1 details the financial mismanagement. The display showed transaction after transaction, each one color-coded to highlight discrepancies. Marcus's eyes darted between the screen and my face, his earlier confidence evaporating with each damning slide. This is taken out of context, he protested weakly. Those allocations were strategic decisions, like the decision to slash the development team's budget while approving a luxury retreat for executives. I pulled up the specific documentation. Or perhaps you'd like to explain why key innovations were repeatedly shelved in favor of quick profit schemes? The board chairman cleared his throat. Mr. Davidson, these numbers are deeply concerning. The pattern of resource misallocation alone— Pattern? Marcus interrupted, desperation creeping into his voice. There is no pattern. Sarah, Ms. Chen, whatever you're calling yourself, you can't just come in here and— Actually, I can, I stated calmly, signaling Rita to distribute the next set of documents. As majority investor, my agreement with Innovatech includes specific clauses regarding ethical leadership and resource management. Clauses you apparently never bothered to read. The screen shifted to display sections of the investment agreement, with key phrases highlighted. Marcus's face grew paler as he finally read the terms he'd so casually dismissed months ago. But the development team reports show progress, he argued, grasping at straws. Our metrics are artificially inflated, I finished, pulling up the real data. Did you think I wouldn't notice you taking credit for innovations you actively suppressed? That I wouldn't track the exodus of talent under your leadership? The room fell silent as a series of resignation letters appeared on screen, along with exit interviews and documented instances of harassment. Marcus's treatment of the development team, his pattern of claiming credit for others' work, his systematic suppression of voices he deemed threatening, all laid bare in meticulous detail. I've been running this company successfully, he tried, his voice losing its usual bombast. The $2 million contract was secured by the same team you've been belittling and undermining, I corrected. The same team whose budget you cut to fund your executive retreats. The same team watching this meeting right now through our secure feed. Marcus's head snapped up at that last revelation, suddenly aware that his humiliation had an audience. Beyond the boardroom, through the glass walls, he could see his employees gathered around their monitors, watching his carefully constructed facade crumble. The board has already reviewed the complete evidence, I informed him, my voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. They've unanimously approved the leadership change, effective immediately. You can't do this, Marcus stood again, desperation giving way to anger. You tricked me. Played some sort of game? No, Marcus, I cut him off. You played yourself. Every time you dismissed an innovative idea because it came from the wrong person. Every time you chose ego over excellence. Every time you told me I wasn't cut out for the big leagues. The irony of his own words hitting him visibly. 6 months of condescension, of subtle abuse, of assumed superiority, all based on a facade I'd constructed specifically to document his true character. Security is waiting outside, I noted as Thomas appeared at the conference room door. They'll escort you to HR to process your termination. Your access to all systems has already been revoked. My contract, he began, but I was already shaking. My head has a very specific clause about ethical leadership requirements, I finished. Requirements you've systematically violated, as this morning's presentation has demonstrated beyond any doubt. Marcus looked around the room one last time, searching for any ally, any escape route. Finding none, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The transformation was remarkable, from swaggering executive to terminated employee in the space of 15 minutes. Thomas will ensure you collect your personal belongings, I stated, my tone making it clear the discussion was over. Any attempt to access company data or contact clients will result in immediate legal action. Do you understand? His nod was barely perceptible as security led him from the room. Through the glass walls, I could see the development team trying to hide their smiles, their relief palpable even from a distance. Now, I turned to the board, ready to begin the real work of transforming Innovatech. Shall we discuss the company's actual future? The catalyst moment had served its purpose. The facade was shattered, the truth revealed, and the real transformation could finally begin. As Marcus's footsteps faded down the hallway, escorted by security, the energy in the office visibly shifted. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I could see the development team emerging from their forced restraint, their expressions a mix of shock, relief, and dawning hope. The metamorphosis wasn't just mine. It was spreading through the entire company like a wave of fresh air after a long storm. Ms. Chen, the board chairman began, his tone markedly different from how he'd addressed me as Sarah just hours ago. I believe we owe you an explanation for not recognizing. I held up a hand, silencing him gracefully. There will be time for that later. Right now, we have more pressing matters to address. I turned to Rita, who was already distributing new documents to the board members. The company's restructuring plan, effective immediately. The transformation continued to ripple through the building. Word was spreading rapidly. Marcus's tyranny was over, and the mysterious Alexandra Chen had been among them all along, watching, documenting, preparing for this moment. First order of business, I announced, standing at the head of the table that Marcus had so often dominated. The development team's budget is restored, effective immediately. All previously shelved innovations will be reviewed for immediate implementation. Through the glass, I could see Jennifer from the dev team, whose breakthrough code Marcus had dismissed just last week, breaking into a wide smile. The same code that would have saved the company millions in processing costs would now finally see the light of day. Security teams are implementing the leadership transition protocols, Rita reported, her tablet displaying real-time updates. Marcus's access to all systems has been revoked. His company devices are being wiped remotely. I nodded, watching. The status bars tick across her screen. Send the all-hands meeting announcement. Everyone in the main conference room in 30 minutes. It's time they met their real investor. The board members shifted uncomfortably, no doubt remembering their own interactions with Sarah over the past months. Each had witnessed Marcus's behavior, his casual dismissal of talent, his toxic leadership style. None had intervened. Don't worry, gentlemen, I addressed their unspoken concerns. Your positions are secure, provided you embrace the new direction we're taking. I pulled up the company's true performance metrics, stripped of Marcus's creative accounting. Though we will be having a separate discussion about oversight responsibilities. Messages were already flooding in from across the industry. Marcus's dismissal was sending shockwaves through the tech community. His calls to contacts at other companies were being politely declined. Word was spreading about the investor who had orchestrated the most elegant takedown the industry had seen in years. The development team leads are assembled in conference. Room B, Rita announced. They're eager to present their innovations directly to you, the ones Marcus kept suppressing. Schedule them for this afternoon, I instructed. First, we need to address the entire company. I stood, smoothing my blazer, no longer the modest outfit of Sarah the consultant, but the power suit of Alexandra Chen, tech industry force. As I prepared for the all-hands meeting, I could see the transformation happening in real time. Employees, who had hunched under Marcus's reign, were standing taller. Conversations were growing more animated, ideas flowing more freely. The culture of fear was already beginning to dissolve. Ms. Chen, a voice called. It was David, one of Marcus's most loyal supporters, looking significantly less confident than usual. I just wanted to explain about some of those meetings. The ones where you and Marcus dismissed female engineers' solutions in favor of less efficient approaches. I finished for him, my tone carrying just enough edge to make him step back. We'll discuss your future with the company this afternoon. For now, I suggest you review the new ethics guidelines Rita just sent to your inbox. The physical transformation from Sarah to Alexandra had been simple: a change of clothes, a different hairstyle, the removal of unnecessary glasses. But the real metamorphosis was in the energy I now commanded, the power I no longer needed to hide. The press is already calling, Rita murmured as we walked toward the main conference room. They want statements about Marcus's departure and the company's future. Let them wait, I replied, watching employees gather for the meeting. The first explanation belongs to the people who suffered under his leadership. The main conference room was packed, with more employees joining virtually from other offices. The nervous energy was palpable. They'd all witnessed Marcus's dramatic exit, but none except the board knew the full story. I took my place at the podium, facing the company I'd watched suffer under Marcus's ego for 6 months. The transformation was complete, from overlooked consultant to revealed power player, from silent observer to decisive leader. Good morning, I began, my voice carrying easily through the room. Most of you know me as Sarah, the consultant Marcus enjoyed dismissing. Today, you'll know me as Alexandra Chen, your majority investor and new CEO. The ripple of shock through the room was almost physical. Hundreds of eyes widened in recognition as they connected the dots. Every time Marcus had mocked my suggestions, he'd been mocking his own boss. Every time he'd dismissed my insights, he'd been digging his own professional grave. The changes beginning today aren't just about removing toxic leadership, I continued, bringing up slides of the innovations we'd be immediately implementing. They're about transforming Innovatech into what it should have been all along, a company that values innovation over ego, merit over manipulation, and actual leadership over empty authority. As I outlined the company's new direction, I could see the final pieces of Marcus's influence falling away. The metamorphosis was complete, not just for me, but for the entire organization. The facade had been necessary to document the disease, but now the real healing could begin. The transformation from perceived weakness to absolute strength wasn't just about personal vindication. It was about showing every person in that room that true power doesn't need to announce itself with bluster and bullying. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one you should watch most carefully. The all-hands meeting had ended, but the real grand reveal was about to begin. I sat in Marcus's former office, now my office, reviewing the cascade of events unfolding across multiple screens. His attempts to damage control were being systematically neutralized, each desperate move met with precisely prepared countermeasures. He's trying to contact our major clients, Rita reported, monitoring the communication channels, particularly about the $2 million contract. I nodded, pulling up the client contact list. Send them the pre-prepared briefing packages. Let them see exactly who they've really been working with. The packages contained detailed documentation of how Marcus had nearly derailed their projects and how the development team, under my quiet guidance, had actually saved them. A notification flashed. Marcus was in the lobby, demanding to speak with the board. His security clearance had been revoked, but I had instructed security to let him through. Some revelations were best delivered in person. Your timing is perfect as usual, I told Rita, as Marcus burst into the office, his face flushed with anger. He stopped short at seeing me in his chair, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. You can't do this, he sputtered, his usual confidence shattered. I built this company. Did you? I interrupted, gesturing to the screens surrounding us. Each displayed a different aspect of his failures. Tanked projects, suppressed innovations, talented employees driven away. Let's talk about what you actually built, Marcus. I stood, every inch the CEO he'd pretended to be. Shall we start with the Morrison contract? The one you bragged about securing? I pulled up the relevant documentation. The same contract that was actually saved by the team you dismissed as support staff. Those were my strategies, he began, but I cut him off again. Your strategies? I pressed a button, and his voice filled the room from a recorded meeting. We don't need fancy algorithms. Just stick to the basic package. They'll never know the difference. Another button. Just bury that efficiency report. Nobody reads those anyway. Marcus's face paled as his own words condemned him. You've been spying on me? Documenting. I corrected. Every instance of mismanagement. Every suppressed innovation. Every time you chose ego over excellence. The screens filled with more evidence. Emails, meeting recordings, financial records. Would you like to see your conversation with competitors about selling proprietary technology? Or perhaps your creative accounting to hide development team budget cuts? He sank into a chair, the full scope of his exposure becoming clear. Why? He managed. Why go through all this? Because some lessons require a dramatic demonstration, I replied, my voice carrying the weight of every time he dismissed me, and others as unworthy of his attention. You needed to learn that. True power doesn't require bullying. Real leadership doesn't mean suppressing others to elevate yourself. Rita entered with more reports. The development team's presentation is ready. They're eager to show you their actual progress, without Marcus's strategic adjustments to the data. Marcus winced at the phrase. His own words again turned against him. Through the glass walls, we could see the office transforming. Teams were gathering, discussing ideas openly for the first time in months. The atmosphere of fear was dissolving. Your personal items are packed, I informed him. Security will escort you out after we finish here. I pulled up one final document, his termination agreement. You have two choices, Marcus. Sign this, acknowledge your misconduct, and leave quietly with your basic severance, or refuse, and we release everything. Every recorded instance of harassment, every financial irregularity, every leaked secret. His hand shook as he reached for the document. You played me, he said quietly. All those months, acting so harmless. No, Marcus. You played yourself. I stood at the window, watching the city skyline. I simply created a context where you felt safe enough to show your true character. Everything else, every mistake, every abuse of power, every instance of arrogance, that was all you. The termination agreement sat between us, a symbol of his complete downfall. Outside the office, employees were gathered, watching the final act of his removal unfold. Many were the same people he'd belittled, dismissed, or pushed aside. The sigh. Press release goes out in an hour, Rita noted, checking her tablet. Your choice determines which version, Marcus. He looked up sharply. Press release? Of course, I replied. Leadership changes at tech companies are newsworthy, particularly when they involve systematic misconduct and the dramatic revelation of a secret CEO. The screens around us displayed draft headlines. Tech CEO ousted after months-long sting operation by secret owner. Or if he chose not to sign, Tech CEO fired for misconduct, full evidence released. Marcus reached for the pen, his movements mechanical. The signature he scrawled bore little resemblance to his usual confident strokes. The man who had swaggered through the office just hours ago was gone, replaced by someone confronting the consequences of his actions for the first time. Security will take you to HR to complete the exit process, I informed him as Thomas appeared at the door. Your company devices have been wiped. Any attempt to access company systems or contact clients will void your severance and trigger immediate legal action. As he stood to leave, Marcus paused. The whole time, he said almost to himself, every time I mocked you, dismissed you, you were showing me exactly why you needed to be removed, I finished. Thank you for making it so abundantly clear. The office watched in silence as security escorted him out. The grand reveal was complete. Not just of my true identity, but of the fundamental truth about power and leadership. Real authority doesn't need to crush others to elevate itself. Send out the all-hands announcement, I instructed Rita. It's time to begin Innovatex. Real transformation. The screens around me shifted to display the company's true potential. Innovations unleashed, talent unleashed, possibilities unlimited. The revelation wasn't just about exposing one man's failures. It was about revealing what a company could become when led with genuine vision instead of ego. And that revelation was just beginning. The hours following Marcus's departure unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony of consequences. Each movement brought new revelations, new adjustments, and new understanding of just how deeply his toxic leadership had affected Innovatech. I stood in my office, no longer playing the role of the meek consultant, watching the immediate aftermath spread through multiple channels. Rita's tablet buzzed continuously with updates from across the company and the broader tech industry. Marcus's LinkedIn profile has already been updated, Rita reported, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. Though seeking new opportunities, might be optimistic given how quickly the news is spreading. I glanced at the social media monitoring dashboard. The tech community was ablaze with the story, not just of Marcus's removal, but of how it had been orchestrated. His industry, contacts, already distancing themselves, Rita confirmed, pulling up messages from our surveillance system. 3 speaking engagements canceled in the last hour. The Tech Leadership Conference has quietly removed him from their panel on innovation and inclusive management. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. A notification flashed on my private screen. Marcus attempting to access company servers from his home computer. Send him a reminder about the terms of his separation agreement, I instructed, and activate the secondary security protocols. The immediate professional consequences were just the beginning. Through our monitoring systems, we could see the ripple effects spreading. His former executive team is scrambling, Rita noted, displaying their frantic message exchanges. Half are trying to claim they were uninvolved in his decisions. The other half are updating their resumes. I pulled up the company's org chart on the main display. Schedule individual meetings with each of them for tomorrow. It's time to separate the salvageable from the compromised. The development team, freed from Marcus's oppressive management, was already showing signs of renewed energy. Jennifer, whose innovative code had been repeatedly sidelined, was leading an impromptu meeting about implementing her optimization algorithm. The $2 million contract client called, Rita announced. They want to meet with you personally. Apparently, they've reviewed the documentation we sent and have some concerns about Marcus's representations. Schedule it for tomorrow, I replied, and prepare the full technical briefing, the one Marcus kept burying because it had to. many complex details. Through the glass walls, I could see the office culture transforming in real time. Teams that had been siloed under Marcus's divide-and-conquer management were naturally coming together. Ideas that had been suppressed were finally being voiced. His industry blog post just went live, Rita reported, bringing up the screen. He's trying to control the narrative, claiming strategic differences and mutual decision-making. I smiled, pressing a button on my desk. Release Response Package 1. Within minutes, every tech news outlet would have documented evidence of the real story. Marcus's attempt at damage control would only dig his hole deeper. The board members are requesting individual meetings, Rita continued, particularly those who witnessed his behavior firsthand. Schedule them for later this week, I instructed. Let them sweat a bit about their own oversight failures. A security alert flashed. Marcus had arrived at his favorite industry networking spot, an upscale bar where he'd often boasted about his leadership prowess. Through our surveillance, we could see him being quietly but firmly turned away. His membership had been revoked hours ago. His attempt to transfer company files before his termination? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Blocked and documented, Rita confirmed. Every unauthorized access attempt is being added to the legal file. His severance package becomes more precarious by the hour. The financial consequences were hitting him particularly hard. His stock options, which he'd bragged about constantly, were worthless under the termination agreement. His executive compensation package had been voided by documented misconduct. He's trying to reach the development team directly, Rita reported, monitoring his phone activity, particularly those he thinks might still be loyal. Show me the responses, I requested. The screen filled with screenshots, developers either ignoring his messages or responding with professional but firm rejections. His power base had evaporated completely. Through another monitor, I watched his reputation implode in real time. Industry forums were buzzing with the story. Former employees were coming forward with their own experiences. His carefully cultivated image as a tech visionary was unraveling thread by thread. The innovation report he buried last month? I asked Rita. Already redistributed to the entire technical team, she confirmed. They're implementing the efficiency improvements this afternoon. Early projections suggest a 40% performance increase. Each hour brought new developments, new consequences, new revelations of just how thoroughly Marcus had sabotaged his own position. His executive parking space, a source of constant boasting, was already reassigned to Jennifer, the developer. He'd repeatedly undermined. His corner office was being converted into a collaborative workspace for the development team. His strategic initiatives were being systematically dismantled, replaced with actual innovation projects. His mother is trying to reach you, Rita noted, checking the incoming messages. Apparently, she's concerned about the financial implications of his termination. I thought about all the times Marcus had mentioned his mother's pride in his executive position. Send her the standard response, along with the documented reasons for his termination. Let her see exactly who her son became when given power. The immediate consequences were severe, but they were just the beginning. Marcus was learning the hard way that true power isn't about dominance, it's about responsibility. And he had failed that responsibility in every possible way. Final status report for the day, Rita announced as evening approached. Company morale is up 60%. 3 previously resigned developers have already requested to return. The technical team has submitted 7 new innovation proposals that Marcus had blocked. I stood at the window, watching the city lights come on. In just one day, the company had begun to transform from Marcus's playground of ego into what it should have been all along, a place where innovation and talent could thrive. Tomorrow, I told Rita, we start rebuilding properly. For now, let Marcus contemplate the consequences of underestimating not just me, but every person he thought he could safely dismiss. The immediate consequences had served their purpose. The message was clear. True leadership isn't about who can shout the loudest or push others down the hardest. It's about creating an environment where everyone can rise to their full potential. And that was just the beginning of Innovatech's transformation. The week following Marcus's removal revealed just how deeply his toxic influence had permeated Innovatech. Like dominoes falling in perfect sequence, each day brought new discoveries, new revelations, and new opportunities for transformation. The forensic accounting team's preliminary report is in, Rita announced, entering my office with a thick folder. She placed it on my desk, where multiple screens already displayed the ongoing dismantling of Marcus's legacy. The financial irregularities go deeper than we initially thought. I opened the report, though the top-line findings were already streaming across one of my monitors. Marcus hadn't just mismanaged resources. He'd created an entire shadow system of accounting to hide his decisions. "Show me the development team's actual budget allocations," I requested. The displays shifted, revealing years of systematic underfunding of innovation, while executive strategic initiatives received bloated budgets. "The pattern is consistent," Rita noted, pulling up comparative charts. Every time the technical team made progress, funds were mysteriously diverted to executive projects, usually right before Marcus claimed credit for their innovations. Through the glass walls of my office, I could see the development team working, with renewed energy. Jennifer's optimization algorithm, finally implemented, had already improved system performance by 45%. The same algorithm Marcus had dismissed as unnecessarily complex. "His industry contacts are falling like dominoes," Rita continued, monitoring the professional fallout. 3 technology conferences have withdrawn his speaking invitations. His profile has been removed from the Tech Leaders to Watch article he was so proud of. I pulled up the surveillance feed from Marcus's preferred business club. He'd been there for hours, desperately trying to network with former colleagues. Each attempt at conversation was met with polite but firm disengagement. No one wanted to be associated with his spectacular fall from grace. "The client audit results?" I asked, though the data was already scrolling across my screens. "Complete. Verification of our suspicions," Rita confirmed. Marcus had been misrepresenting our technical capabilities to close deals, then forcing the development team to work impossible hours to cover his promises. The domino effect was spreading beyond Innovatech. Other companies were launching internal reviews, suddenly concerned about their own leadership practices. Marcus's dramatic exposure had triggered a broader conversation about toxic management in the tech industry. "His former executive team's exit interviews are revealing," Rita noted, bringing up the transcripts. One by one, they were admitting to their roles in his systematic suppression of talent. Some were trying to save themselves by providing additional evidence of his misconduct. "His attempts to access company data continue," Rita reported, showing the security logs. Each failed attempt added another violation to his separation agreement. The severance package he'd fought to keep growing more precarious by the hour. The monitors displayed the ongoing transformation. Development team morale up 70%. New project proposals, 23 submitted in 1 week. System efficiency, improving daily. Client satisfaction, rising steadily. "The press coverage is intensifying," Rita added, displaying multiple news feeds. The story had evolved beyond a simple CEO removal. It had become a case study in how toxic leadership can strangle innovation, and how its removal can unleash unprecedented potential. "Marcus's last supporter on the board has resigned," Rita announced, updating the organizational chart. His letter cited personal reasons, but the timing. "Send him the evidence package we compiled," I instructed. "Let him understand exactly what he was supporting." The systematic dismantling of Marcus's influence continued throughout the day. Each hour brought new revelations. His executive training program, supposedly focused on innovation, was exposed as a network for suppressing new ideas that threatened his authority. His strategic partnerships were revealed to be personal networking opportunities that provided no value to Innovatech. His efficiency initiatives were shown to be thinly veiled attempts to consolidate power by eliminating positions that challenged his decisions. The development team has requested a meeting, Rita reported. They've compiled a list of shelved innovations that could revolutionize our product line. Schedule it immediately, I responded, and prepare to allocate the resources Marcus had, reserved for his executive retreat to actual development. Through our monitoring systems, we could see Marcus growing increasingly desperate. His calls to industry contacts were going unanswered. His former mentors were publicly distancing themselves. His carefully constructed network of influence was unraveling thread by thread. His personal technology accounts have been suspended, Rita noted. Apparently, he used company credentials to access premium services. The providers are not pleased. The domino effect had spread to every aspect of his professional life. His industry blog was taken offline after multiple reports of misrepresented achievements. His technical certifications were under review due to documented misuse of company resources. His professional memberships were being revoked as evidence of his misconduct spread. The client he claimed was impossible to work with has reached out, Rita reported. The one whose project he shelved because they questioned his technical decisions? Let me guess, they worked directly with our development team? Exactly. Jennifer had solved their technical challenges months ago. Marcus buried the solution because it didn't match his strategic vision. Each revelation strengthened our position. Marcus had built his authority on suppression and fear, and like all such structures, it collapsed completely once the foundation was removed. Final update for the day, Rita announced as evening approached. The development team's morale metrics are at historic highs. 3 more resigned engineers have requested to return. And the system optimization Jennifer implemented has exceeded all projected performance metrics. I stood at my window, watching the city lights emerge. The systematic dismantling of Marcus's influence had been necessary, but it was only the beginning. The real work, building something better in place of what he'd destroyed, was just beginning. Tomorrow, I told Rita, we start implementing the innovations he suppressed. It's time to show everyone what Innovatech can really achieve without his ego in the way. The domino effect had served its purpose. Marcus's carefully constructed facade of authority had crumbled, revealing the truth he'd tried so hard to hide. Real leadership isn't about suppressing others' potential. It's about creating an environment where everyone can excel, and that transformation was just beginning. 1 month after Marcus's removal, the ripple effects of his downfall had spread far beyond Innovatech's walls. I sat in my office, reviewing the transformation on multiple levels: company, industry, and the broader tech community. The Harvard Business Review wants to feature Innovatech's transformation, Rita reported, entering with her morning brief. They're calling it the Silent Revolution: How Toxic Leadership Was Quietly Overthrown. The displays surrounding my desk showed real-time metrics of the company's revival: innovation submissions up 300%, employee satisfaction at record levels, system efficiency improved by 80%, client satisfaction scores reaching unprecedented heights. Show me the industry response analysis, I requested. The screens shifted to display a broader picture. Our story had triggered a wave of self-examination across the tech sector. Companies launching leadership audits, board members reviewing oversight practices, investment firms scrutinizing management styles, industry conferences adding sessions on toxic leadership detection. Marcus's influence continues to diminish, Rita noted, pulling up the latest tracking data. His fall had become a cautionary tale, studied in business schools and cited in articles about failed leadership. Through our monitoring systems, we could see the ripple effects touching every corner of the tech world. 3 more companies have discovered similar patterns, Rita reported. CEOs using Marcus's playbook of suppression and credit stealing. All under investigation now. I nodded, watching the data stream across my screens. The exposure of Marcus's tactics had made them easier to recognize elsewhere. Other companies were finding their own hidden toxicity and taking action. The development team's latest innovation has caught significant attention, Rita continued, displaying market responses. The same project Marcus had dismissed as unnecessarily complex was now being hailed as revolutionary. Jennifer, now leading our technical division, had transformed her department. Collaborative coding sessions replaced hierarchical mandates. Innovation was celebrated rather than suppressed. Junior developers were mentored instead of marginalized. Every voice was heard and valued. The industry forums are particularly active today, Rita noted, bringing up the discussions. Tech professionals worldwide were sharing their own stories of toxic leadership, creating a movement for change. Through another monitor, I watched Marcus's continued professional descent. His attempts to secure new positions were met with polite rejections. His speaking engagements remained canceled. His industry influence had evaporated completely. His former allies had distanced themselves permanently. The ripple effects in venture capital are interesting, Rita observed, showing investment. Trend data. Firms were adding new criteria to their due diligence. Leadership style assessment, innovation culture, evaluation, employee satisfaction metrics, power distribution analysis. The transformation of Innovatech had become a blueprint for industry change. Our open innovation policy was being studied and replicated. Our collaborative development model was becoming a standard. Our employee empowerment strategies were being adopted widely. Our transparency initiatives were inspiring similar programs. The technical community's response has been overwhelming, Rita reported, displaying messages from developers worldwide. They saw our story as validation of their own experiences and a sign that change was possible. The ripple effects touched every aspect of the industry. Recruitment practices were being reformed. Management training was being redesigned. Company cultures were being reevaluated. Power structures were being questioned. Marcus's last attempt at damage control backfired spectacularly, Rita noted, bringing up recent news coverage. His effort to paint himself as a misunderstood visionary had only highlighted the contrast between his leadership and our new success. Through our monitoring systems, we could see the lasting impact of his exposure. Companies were implementing anti-bullying policies. Boards were strengthening oversight measures. Investors were demanding leadership accountability. Industry groups were developing new ethical guidelines. The client relationships have completely transformed, Rita continued, showing satisfaction metrics. Without Marcus's interference, our technical team was free to provide real solutions rather than inflated promises. The ripple effects were evident in our daily operations. Meetings were collaborative rather than confrontational. Ideas were evaluated on merit rather than source. Success was shared rather than claimed. Innovation was nurtured rather than controlled. The industry publications are particularly interested in our transformation timeline, Rita noted, displaying media requests. Our story had become a case study in how to identify and remove toxic leadership while preserving company value. The broader impact was reflected in changing industry standards. Leadership evaluations became more thorough. Employee feedback gained greater weight. Innovation metrics were redefined. Success was measured differently. The final analysis of Marcus's impact is complete, Rita announced, bringing up the comprehensive report. The contrast between his leadership and our new direction was stark. Innovation had been stifled, now it flourished. Talent had been suppressed, now it thrived. Progress had been controlled, now it accelerated. Potential had been limited, now it was unlimited. I stood at my window, watching the tech district buzz with activity. The ripple effects of our transformation had created waves of change throughout the industry. Marcus's removal hadn't just freed Innovatech, it had sparked a broader revolution in how tech companies viewed leadership and success. "Schedule a meeting with the development team," I instructed Rita. "It's time to implement Phase 2 of our innovation pipeline." The projects Marcus had dismissed as impossible were about to become reality. The ripple effects had served their purpose, transforming not just our company, but the industry's understanding of true leadership. The message was clear. Success doesn't come from suppressing potential. It comes from unleashing it, and that revolution was just beginning. 6 months after Marcus's removal, I stood in our newly redesigned headquarters, watching the vibrant pulse of true innovation in action. What had once been a monument to one man's ego was now a testament to collective brilliance unleashed. "The final performance numbers are in," Rita announced, joining me at the window. "They tell quite a story. And what a story it was." Innovatech had not just recovered from Marcus's toxic leadership, it had transformed into something he could never have imagined. Revenue had tripled. Innovation patents had increased tenfold. Employee retention reached 98%. Our stock value had quadrupled, but the real transformation couldn't be measured in mere numbers. "Jennifer's team just launched the quantum encryption protocol," Rita reported, pulling up the project dashboard, the same one Marcus called unnecessarily ambitious. The innovation that he had dismissed as impossible was now revolutionizing data security across the industry. Through the glass walls, I could see teams collaborating in the spaces that had once been executive offices. Marcus's corner office, his former throne room, was now a bustling innovation lab where junior developers worked alongside senior engineers, each voice equally valued. "Have you seen the latest industry report?" Rita asked, displaying an analysis that made me smile. Innovatech had become the gold standard for corporate transformation. Our management model was being studied at top business schools. Our innovation framework was being adopted industry-wide. Our collaborative culture was inspiring similar transformations. Our story had become a blueprint for positive changes for Marcus. The last we'd heard, he was teaching a night class on traditional business leadership at a local community college. His LinkedIn profile still listed him as a visionary tech executive, though his connection requests went largely ignored. "The game? Final irony," Rita noted, showing me his course syllabus, "is that his students are probably learning more from his failures than his instruction." I turned from the window to survey the office. Where Marcus had built walls, we'd created bridges. Where he had demanded silence, we encouraged dialogue. Where he had hoarded power, we distributed it. "The $2 million contract?" I asked. Though I already knew the answer. "Expanded to $20 million, Rita confirmed. The client was particularly impressed with how our collaborative approach solved problems Marcus had declared impossible. The transformation had rippled far beyond our walls. Other companies had started examining their leadership cultures. Investors were prioritizing healthy corporate environments. The industry had begun shifting away from the toxic genius paradigm. A new generation of leaders was emerging, focused on empowerment rather than control. "One last thing," Rita added, pulling up a final message. "The board wants to formally recognize the team's achievements. They're particularly impressed with how the company has exceeded all growth projections, without a single executive retreat or luxury conference." I smiled, remembering Marcus's insistence that such extravagances were essential for leadership. The money we'd saved on executive perks had funded 3 new innovation labs. "Should we release the final numbers?" Rita asked. I nodded, watching as she distributed the report that would show the world exactly what happens when you remove toxic leadership and let talent flourish. Innovation metrics that shattered industry standards, collaboration scores that set new benchmarks, development timelines that redefined possibility, success that proved the power of collective brilliance. The lesson was clear. True power isn't about controlling others. It's about creating an environment where everyone can achieve their full potential. One last update, Rita said softly. The development team named their latest innovation protocol Phoenix, rising from the ashes of suppression to soar beyond all limitations. I touched the window, my reflection overlaying the vibrant office scene beyond. The quiet consultant, who had endured Marcus's mockery, was gone, replaced by a leader who had proven that the loudest voice in the room is often the least worthy of power. Send out the annual report, I instructed Rita. It's time to show the world what real leadership can achieve. As the sun set over the city, casting long shadows through our innovative spaces, I reflected on the journey. Marcus had been right about one thing. Some people aren't cut out for the big leagues. But he had fundamentally misunderstood who those people were. True leadership, I had proven, doesn't need to announce itself with bluster and dominance. Sometimes, the most powerful person in the room is the one quietly watching, waiting for the perfect moment to transform everything, and that transformation, at Innovatech and beyond, was just the beginning, the end.